Hello all. Better start the camera, get something in my eye. Always something. Alright, how you doing? We're doing good tonight. Tonight's shave is more about the talk than the shave, the history. This is a good one. I like stories like this. There's a lot more to it than I was able to print out. It's long, detailed, and everything. I hit the highlights. Okay, we're going to be using the HeadBlade ATX. This is the one with 2 wheels up front. The Moto is the one with 1 wheel up front, the ball wheel. And I'm just using the B-ball gel. Just like I said, I ordered 1 of these. I got 3. So I'm just trying to use this stuff up. Okay. Tonight's topic, February 22nd, 1879, in Utica, New York. Something was founded by Frank Winfield Woolworth. I wonder what that could be. Frank Woolworth? How many of you guys remember the Woolworth stores? Let's see if I add some water to it, if it'll lather a little bit. I don't know if I ever tried that or not. I think I tried lathering it with a brush and it did not work. No, it's not working. It's getting it all over my hand even more. My little trimmer. Let's do this. Yes, the old Woolworth stores. I remember them quite well. Them, Western Union. We ain't got the Western Union yet. But yes, on February 22nd, 1879, Woolworth's Great 5-cent store was first founded in Utica, New York. Although it was initially successful, the store closed in May of 1879. It didn't catch on. But to open that store, Frank had borrowed money from his former boss, William Moore, who owned Moore's. Moore owned a store, a conventional type store, where you go in with a list of stuff you want, and the clerk gets it for you, type store. And he used his savings, some money he borrowed from Moore, and he opened that original store, which ended up failing. A friend suggested to him that maybe Utica wasn't the place for the store, that he should try someplace else for the store, because Frank wasn't ready to give up yet. So the friend suggested Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So Frank went and looked down at Lancaster and he said, yeah, this might work. It's bigger than Utica. It's more people. might be able to get more sales. So he opened his store in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And it was successful. And he opened that on July 18th, 1879. So it didn't take him long from the time his first store closed to the time he opened the second one. And then, because that store was successful, he brought his brother, Charles Sumner Woolworth, nicknamed Sum, into the business. The two brothers pioneered and developed merchandising, direct purchasing, sales, and customer service practices commonly used today. They were the first ones to do a lot of things that you and I take for granted when we go shopping today. That we don't even think twice about. Because like I said before, when I was talking about when we did the Piggly Wiggly review, history, stores were, and you've seen the movies, the westerns and stuff, whether you go into the store with a list of items that you want, or go in and tell the clerk the items you want, and they fetch them off the shelves and bring them to you at the counter. And that's how shopping was done. Then Piggly Wiggly, for grocery stock shopping, you walked in the doors and you were into aisle 1, and you up and down the aisles, and you were able to view products on all the shelves and pick out which can you wanted. Well, Woolworths were the first ones to offer merchandise out on the shelves where you could walk in and handle it yourself, instead of being given one from multiple, or only one left, whatever, behind the counter that the clerk gave you to look at. They were the ones that pioneered that as far as retail stores go. But Some opened his store. His brother Frank wanted to open a store in another town close to Lancaster. You got to remember, back in those days, people did not travel far. We jump in a car, go drive 20 miles, and we don't think anything of it. They used to. That was a big deal for them to go 20 miles. Most people never left their town. They never traveled outside the town limits back then. So, in another store like that one in another nearby town was not unfathomable. Sorry, I got water on my glasses and they just keep smearing around, make it worse. It was not considered odd. They were the first store also to have fixed prices. Most items were 5 or 10 cents, and then in 1932, they decided to add a 20-cent line to their stores. But then in 1935, the board of directors decided to forego pricing limitations at all, and just, you could get whatever at whatever price. And people complained about Woolworth for that reason. Because, like today, people complain about the big box stores, Walmart and Target and whatnot, cutting out the mom and pop stores, the small private businesses in towns. Well, Woolworth did the same thing to mom and pop stores back in the day. And people complained about it back then too. Sorry. I've had one hell of a day. Okay, anyways. It was William Moore and he borrowed the money from, and Frank borrowed the money from, and it was Augusby and Moore Dry Goods store in Watertown, New York. That's where he worked for William Moore, and that's who he borrowed the money from to open the first store. Okay. Frank asked his brother, Charles Sumner, to join him in business and open a second store. And the second store he wanted to open near the Lancaster was in Harrisburg. And he had open and manage that store. All right, this is where the brothers start taking a little bit of a different path. Because Sumner wanted the stores very nice. Mahogany counters, everything spick and span shiny, mahogany floors, polished, shiny, the exteriors clean, presentable, very nice, everything. And Frank was more on the business end. He wanted to do certain things business-wise. So they complemented each other because one made the stores very nice and pretty inside and outside, and the other one took care of the business matters. So in that case, they worked very well together. Because Charles, Frank's brother, brought in a friend of his to open another store, and then he brought in a cousin to open another store, and then these people brought in friends or relatives to open other stores. So eventually there started to become these chains of like, one guy's last name was Kirby. There was Woolworth and Kirby. And then like Moore opened a store also. He left Aubrey and Moore, and he opened a store, and it became Woolworth and Moore. So they started opening these branches of stores all around Pennsylvania and the Northeast that was Woolworth and somebody. But Frank eventually conglomerated them all together into one syndicate under one brand name, Woolworth. And he also got them all to combine their money to do so they'd have better inventory and have better buying power, because as everybody knows, the more you buy of something, the cheaper you can get it. So if all these stores are buying together in bulk and storing it themselves in a warehouse where they could pick from if they needed it, you're making your dollar go farther. You can buy more. And that's what Frank did. That's how he set the company up. And also Sumner was known for getting out on the floor in his store, dealing with customers, talking to staff, dealing with people face to face. And he also took over the job of training managers and new owners for their stores, how to operate, how to deal with customers, how to deal with staff, and how to do things, while Frank helped them manage the business end. Like I said, they worked well together. Then in 1900, Frank came up with a plan to rejuvenate Lancaster, Pennsylvania. See, Frank, because of his success in Lancaster, never forgot that store. That was his original store. That was where everything started for him. So he never forgot that store. So he wanted to rejuvenate Lancaster. His store was what was considered not such a good part of town. So he started buying properties up on North Queen Street, where his store was located. His store was on North Queen Street. So he started buying the properties on North Queen Street without saying anything about wanting to rejuvenate the area. He didn't want the prices of the property to go up. So he bought all the property cheap, which is the smart thing to do. He bought it all cheap, and then when he was done and got all the property, he announced, all this stuff's gonna go. I'm gonna put in one very large store that the ground floor is all gonna be Woolworth, and there's gonna be 5 levels of office buildings above it, and on the roof there'll be a garden and a theater, open air theater. And after that building was complete, the open air theater became a gathering point for the town. Everybody would go to the open air theater every night and sit and talk and drink. It was very, very popular place, and he rejuvenated Lancaster. See, It was agreed, yes. But did it help the community? Yes. He made a gathering spot for the town. Then, in 1910, 10 years later, he came up with his masterpiece. The Woolworth Building in New York City, which, when it was completed in 1913, was the tallest skyscraper in the world until 1930. And I'll put a picture in right here. He paid for that building in cash. Now, I have not been able to find how much the building cost. I couldn't even find how tall it was. I'm sure if I looked a little harder, I could find out the height. But the article I was reading did not give the height. If you want, you can go back on the picture and pause it and count the stories yourself if you want. Just count each window as you go up. One window per level is one floor. Okay. The architect for the building was Cass Gilbert. It served as the company's headquarters for F.W. Woolworth until it was sold in 1998 by Venator Group, which was the company that Woolworth became later on. And they sold the building and they moved to a location on 34th Street. Frank died in 1919. He was never able to see how big his company would grow. In 1925, the company reported $250 million in sales in 1925 money and $239 million in 1926 money. It's a lot. Now, the store in Liverpool, UK, there was stores all over Europe and Canada and Mexico and whatnot. There were stores everywhere. In 1908, there was 596 stores. In 1908, from 1879 to 1908, 596 stores. Excuse me. The store in Liverpool, UK, had a lunch counter. It was the first store to have a lunch counter, and it was very, very popular. So the other stores started incorporating lunch counters into their stores. They became very, very popular. They were also the predecessor to the mall's food courts. Yes, they were. Okay. Now, in 1962, Woolworth competitors started springing up everywhere. They opened similar retail chains that sold merchandise at a discount. S.S. Kresge, Kresge Company, opened Walmart. Dayton's opened Target. And Sam Walton opened the very first Walmart store, and all of these happened in 1962. The handwriting was on the wall for Woolworth. The following year, in 1963, Woolworth expanded into the shoe store business with the purchase of Kinney Shoes. You were a kid growing up in the mid-60s or early 60s. I remember Kinney Shoes. There were still Kinney Shoe stores and Kinney Shoes around when I was a kid in the late 60s. I remember Kinney Shoes. They were still being sold under Kinney Shoes, even though they were owned by Woolworth. Now, Kinney Shoe would eventually create the store that Woolworth would become, which is Foot Locker. So the Foot Locker stores you see around now are originally Woolworth stores, in a way. But that's the original company, Woolworth, for Foot Locker. By Woolworth's 100th anniversary in 1979. It became the largest department store chain in the world, according to Guinness Book of World Records. On July 17, 1997, Woolworth closed its last remaining department stores in the United States and changed the corporate name to Venator, Venator. And in 1999, Venator moved from the Woolworth building in New York City to offices on 34th Street. I said that already. And on October 20th, 2001, the company changed the name again and became Foot Locker Incorporated, which of course was started in 1974 from the Kinney Shoes brand or stores. And it is the legal continuation of the original Woolworth. Okay, some interesting side notes about Woolworth. During the civil rights era of the 60s, there were several sit-ins held at Walmart's or Woolworth lunch counters in the American South. Several sit-ins were held at the white-only lunch counters in the American South, I should say. Black students, protesters would sit in the white-only lunch counters and protest. Several of those happened during that era. In 1929, in Atlantic City, New Jersey, Sam Foster, you know who Foster is? The founder of Foster Grant Sunglasses. He sold sunglasses from his counter in Woolworth's on the famous boardwalk in New Jersey. That's how he got his start selling his sunglasses at Woolworth on the Jersey Shore. There is a Woolworth building still standing right here in Bakersfield, California. Although it's an antique store now. It's not a Woolworth, it's an antique store. But it still includes a functioning lunch counter diner at that store. Like I said, I'm just activating the slickness just for right here. It's an antique store. Was a Woolworth. Still has a lunch counter. I remember the Woolworth lunch counters. I remember Woolworth lunch counters so well that J.C. Penney's had lunch counters in their stores at the mall. That's how popular the Woolworth lunch counter became, that J.C. Penney's started putting them in their stores. On the second floor in the mall was a J.C. Penney diner. I remember those because when Mom took me to Penney's to shop for my school clothes, we always made it a day and we stopped at the J.C. Penney lunch counter. I'm sure some of you guys remember those things too. I know there's a few of you other guys out there that are my age that remember those times. That's a good head shaver. I don't care what anybody says. They're gimmicky, yes, but that's part of the fun. Give you that sensation of being a kid again, playing with your Hot Wheels on the floor. But now you get to play with them on your head and not get the wheels all wrapped up in your hair. That's part of the gimmick. It's fun. It works. Okay, got it. But Woolworth. How many of you guys remember Walgreens Witch hazel? Do you remember those? Do you remember the lunch counters at J.C. Penney? I don't think Sears had the lunch counter. I know Penney's did. I know for a fact Penney's did. Oh, DBA Barber Cat Litter. It's a leather type scent. This stuff, at least 6 hours of wear, scent-wise, at least. And both those V&E soap, the new soaps I got, the cedar leather and the Old Main Spice, both those aftershaves were like an EDP, 8 hours at least. For me, they were. Johnson & Johnson baby lotion, because, you know, want my dome as soft as my brain. You don't need much because that stuff spreads and spreads and spreads. Ask a baby's butt, then well. Alright, that's it. Like I said, it was more about the talk about Woolworth than the shave today. And with that, I'll say, don't forget the affiliate link. When that account hits $25, I will get a $25 gift card to the razor company. So if you're buying from the razor company, please use that link. When it hits 25, I'll buy a $25 gift card to the razor company. Give back to you guys. I don't ever keep that. All right. I don't know if anybody else is doing that except for me, but I don't care. It's fine. If I want something, I will buy it. I don't need that. Don't forget to check the 4 channels I'll put in the description box. Give those guys a like and a sub. I'm sure they'd appreciate to get their numbers increased. And with that, I will say a lot of memories with Woolworth and all that. What do you think, guys, huh? We miss those stores or what? Anyways, enough of the battling back guy in the camera. You're in the chair next. Happy shaves out there, guys.